Welcome. It's a pleasure today to have Philip here in the studio for an interview. So welcome, Philip. Thanks for your time today. It's really exciting for me to talk with you a little bit about Sonia and to shed some light on your story and also how it relates to the health tech ecosystem in Luxembourg. So for those who don't know me yet, I'm Christian, one of the partners of Cataventures. We are currently building the first fully dedicated health tech VC in Luxembourg. So what we are going to do is in the coming years, we're going to invest in around about 20 early stage health tech startups with our first fund, which will be the Cataventures Health Fund, based also here in Luxembourg with a European scope. And we are going to invest into companies who are addressing the pressing challenges of an aging society, the shortage of healthcare professionals, and also the escalating costs of our healthcare systems. So today I brought a set of questions to have a conversation here with Philip, because you are one of those entrepreneurs actually addressing those problems. And for the start, I would suggest that you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Christian. So Philip, I'm the managing director of Sonia, which is a health tech based in Luxembourg and Germany. From my background, I'm a business administration guy and created the biggest dental chain in Germany before. So I know a bit about the problems that you can face in healthcare when you really want to save or heal people. And in 2023, decided to start the venture with Sonia because ultimately what we were seeing is that healthcare will change and will change dramatically, and part of your investment thesis addresses the fundamental changes that are going to come because we are in an aging society, and what that actually does to healthcare is demand stays the same or grows while supply will be reduced. So what do? So you better find a solution for it, and I think Sonia can be a lever to make that happen. And the second thing we saw is also that new technologies are coming into the market, like AI on large scale.
Certainly.
And obviously that's when Sonia was born. And Sonia today is an AI SaaS logic business model. We have the vision to enable doctors to be truly doctors. The reason is that when you look closely what a doctor does today, or a dentist is our first segment actually, they heal, which is great, which is the reason why they chose that path. However, 25% or more of their time they spend on administration, filling forms, just making sure that all the information is stored somewhere.
Which is a lot.
And again, coming from supply-demand dynamics in the healthcare market, you need to be more efficient. And so we provide a solution, basically. It's a microphone in the room that takes in the voice input, transcribes it, and fills a form that helps the doctor to reduce this pain of documenting by themselves all the tedious details of their work, which is also important for the patient because they want to know what has been done. And so this is our solution today. Doctors are really excited about it because it saves them about an hour a day. And that's typically an hour early at home with the kids. And so, yeah, we are on quite an interesting journey, we feel, and customers are, as I told you in the beginning, flocking on our solution,
Yeah, I mean, that's perfect. And I think also what is great about the story is that you started just a couple of months ago. You also closed your pre-seed round already, so you raised first capital to accelerate your growth and develop the solution further. So could you give us some details about how that went? Because right now there is like a tense situation when it comes to venture capital and startups. We have quite a significant squeeze of capital right now, so it's not so easy to raise. So what made it successful for you?
So if we go back in time, so we started in August 2023, raised few euros with friends and family, and then were selected also by the Luxembourgish government for the Fit for Start early this year, so beginning 2024. And that enabled, on the one hand, to professionalize part of the operation. That's one element. And the other is that it gave also equity-free funding, which is also an element, obviously, an entrepreneur is looking for. Both elements brought us to the point that we then in May, April, raised the first pre-seed round based on our first MVP, first users, first usage, and also the overall hypothesis that doctor really want help on this tedious documentation piece. And since then, we have been deploying the solution at scale with customers and now are nearing the 1 million revenue thresholds, I guess, soon.
Which is incredibly fast. So after 6 months going to the market, it's really an achievement. Congratulations to this. So you already mentioned Luxembourg, which might be a surprise for many, especially if you come from the German side. I mean, you're like a German Luxembourger startup somehow, but you decided to really opt in for Luxembourg. Was there a specific reason for it? So why was that decision made?
Yeah, so I also got that question from not only you, but a number of people. But fundamentally, I think Luxembourg has a fantastic place going forward. And I'll come to the more macro reasons for that. But on a company level, I think the attraction is relatively simple. You have a talent pool, although one might say, oh, it's not big, but it is relevant.
It seems to be a small country somehow.
It is relevant because you have, Paris is not far, so you can tap into the engineers in Paris. You have Amazon as a big employer here who has actually quite some talent. You have the university that's providing talent. So there's actually a talent pool of relevant, particularly when it comes to AI topics, of relevant engineers around here. And secondly, I mean, I'm German. My heart is bleeding, but the infrastructure is just better.
Well, yeah, I can tell you also.
Roads, airports, and then you have for us also Meluxina, which is a supercomputer, and so easy deal and offer for startups to use it. So infrastructure is also a key attraction point. And then, as I said, funding. Because Fit for Start, we were able to get government funding. Now we are in the second phase of our development where we actually establish a local R&D team here because, again, factor one, talent is there, factor two, infrastructure is there, and thirdly, the government is funding it in parts. So that obviously makes for us a lot of sense then to develop our research operations here in Luxembourg.
And it's also good risk mitigation in the early phases, I could assume.
Indeed, and as a young company, and also from your probably a point of view as an investor, it's always good to have a mix of financing sources. You cannot only rely on only government or only private money. It's the mix, and so here I think Luxembourg is very smart and very generous also to provide public money to innovate, and so I think that's clearly an attraction point. That is very helpful for us. And if I look into the future, I think there's an other element that is relevant for the entrepreneurs, which is simply that there is tax schemes, IP box, that is for an IT company, a relevant tooling to optimize your internal cash flows. So I think that's also for all those that are in the AI space, a relevant information. And if you continue on that road, I think what I think is different in Luxembourg than in other places, there's also an interest to actually have companies set up. Macron, when he was president, he still is president, but when he was also in charge of the government, had a clear agenda of bringing startups to France, and the result is actually quite nice, I would say.
And BP France had a lot of ammunition for executing that strategy, yes.
And BP France had a lot of ammunition and it created jobs, period. I think what I see here is that there is a big political will to make things move. So just as a fact, I mean, I see frequently ministers just seeing startups, or there's a new initiative of reducing the administrational burden for companies here in Luxembourg. So I think the signals are all going in the right direction, and that obviously is also very important for a young company to understand that you are not going against something, but you're going with the flow. So that's the last one, and then obviously it's a multicultural environment. We are using voice as input, so it's a great place to plan and learn. And
but that's a good point. So do you also have any plans to further expand? So right now you're mainly present on the German market. Obviously in Luxembourg, we talked earlier that you want to somehow also approach the local dentists here, because for them your solution would be as precious and as valuable as for the German dentists, obviously. Would you have further plans to expand? So you're really using Luxembourg also as a hub to expand into like also the French-speaking countries?
It clearly can be an option, and it certainly makes the attraction also for the country. I think we should talk about that in 12 months' time, and then we know where we stand. But clearly, I think the advantage of Luxembourg, again, maybe linked to the talent topic, is you can speak all the languages in the same day, which in an area where actually voice is the input for using tools can be quite an advantage.
Yes. And so we now heard about certain advantages within the Luxembourg ecosystem, specifically also when it comes to health tech. So Fit for Start, for those who don't know yet, is more or less the national acceleration program. There are different verticals, which is in the digital tech sector, but also there's a specific health tech track. And I've had the pleasure to serve on the jury past year and also for the following year now. So for us as a VC locally placed, it's a very good point that you also have the local government supporting the young health tech ecosystem and to really help building it now, because we have a lot of interesting stakeholders here. And Fit for Start is more or less the entry ticket for startups also coming from abroad to land in Luxembourg. But there is more. So after Fit for Start, you're now engaging with this kind of ecosystem innovation track. So you were telling something about an RDI earlier. So the support continues also after Fit for Start.
Yeah, so that's I think the one of the points I mentioned is that the funding is really a key differentiator, and it starts with Fit for Start, which is the entry ticket, as you said, and then there comes the RDI, which is a research and development grant logic, which is very helpful because when you're in an early stage setup, as we are, you don't know which way you will go. So you need to do research. You need to do research to make your product better. And to de-risk that investment, it's very helpful that the government actually has a program where you can plan with a relevant certainty that it actually comes. Because obviously there's tons of programs around the world, in particular in Europe. But I think what stands out here is that you can have a relatively high degree of certainty that it's going to be successful, whereas in other places, you spend most of your energy on writing the application and the chances are slim. So I think that makes a difference for us for me as an entrepreneur, and will make a difference also for the ecosystem. I'm quite sure.
Yeah, perfect. So perhaps finally, so you already raised your pre-seed round, so naturally seed round is coming up. We are one of the VCs present here in Luxembourg, but I mean, you're going to raise potentially also from abroad. Do you have an opinion if it is important, or what would be your take on developing a health tech ecosystem in Luxembourg? and how important it is to have a local VC specialized in health tech also here within the ecosystem. Would that be something where you see a real value in, or is it you say, okay, there is a nice airport, I can fly to wherever and race abroad, and that's not really relevant to us?
There's different stages for each company, and for each stage there's a different setup that's going to be helpful and successful. And I think in the early beginning, when you are a very early startup, early stage startup, an idea, first team, it is extremely helpful to have people close that you can go to and talk to, including investors that are specialized in what you do, because it helps you to avoid the typical trap of you have a great idea and you want to make exactly that idea happen. Because if at this early stage you're already so focused on one thing, you clearly will get lost. You need to be able to adapt, to take into account ideas on business model, ideas on value prop, tons of ideas. And so I think it's absolutely relevant and critical for an ecosystem that is growing to have expertise, domain expertise in funding on this vertical. Obviously, the ecosystem is in the beginning. Luxembourg, for historical reasons, is stronger in fintech or financial topics. But I think for a growing ecosystem, it's very important to have local specialists that can help grow and also make sure that the cycle of the local cycle of the ecosystem is getting to start, which means once there's an exit, obviously there's funds that will be redeployed in the local ecosystem and so on and so forth. Clearly, I think it's a very, very good job and very helpful and important with what you are doing, what you will be doing, because it will help to the ecosystem to grow faster. And in particular in healthcare, because healthcare is a very, very, from the outside, easy place to do business. But once you're in, you know it's not that easy. And so it's very helpful to have someone who can take you on this right journey.
Perfect. So if I may summarize a little bit what we discussed before. So Sonia obviously is a solution which will help reduce dentists and later on also general practitioners in clinics to reduce the time spent on administration, which is also one of our large levers which we want to execute in our strategy. So shortage of healthcare professionals, it's very difficult to fight, and one of the large levers you can have is to really just cut off every time from the healthcare professionals which is not directly serving to the patient. And technology comes in here and really is a new solution, especially if you're talking about AI, even if it's a very, it's a word no one can hear anymore. I mean, it's been all around the press and the media in the past months and years since ChatGPT. But nonetheless, it's a very good technology, especially when it comes to healthcare, because it unlocks a whole new dimension of solutions which were not accessible to healthcare professionals before. So I think that's a really, really valuable solution you're developing. We are following the team closely, obviously. And when it comes to Luxembourg, I think that's also a part which is not natural to many people. But if I summarize it now, you found a good support here locally. And that's you wouldn't expect this. So you said actually that you find the talent. So usually Luxembourg is roughly 600,000 people. So a common point is that people from abroad say, okay, Luxembourg is so small, I will not find the developers I need. But you said, okay, there's a close connection to France. It's a very international society here. And you have large players like Amazon, for example, locally. So there is talent already here. And the last thing is that actually there are some very smart regulations like the IP box regime, which is basically supporting startups when their value proposition is based on intellectual property, which accounts for a lot of AI solutions. So that's also a strong argument for you to come here, if I summarize that correctly.
Yeah, clearly,
And I think it's important to talk about these points because many founders don't know this yet. And also for us as a VC, it's important to address these points because it really can help startups to understand why Luxembourg is interesting, why we have a health tech ecosystem here, which is really under the radar right now, but gives you also an opportunity to develop your solution very efficiently and then go to the market with a stronger positioning than before. And I think that is very valuable insights. So thank you very much, Philip, for your time today. And yeah, I hope you also enjoyed it. You took some lessons from our conversation and some learnings. And yeah, we'll see each other again.